Hello, and welcome to the very first video of my brand new channel, learning new languages by playing games in languages I do not speak. For this first video, in a new what I'm calling Let's Learn series, I wanted to try practicing some French, and so I thought, what better game to do that with than Assassin's Creed Unity. Now, full disclosure, I spent a couple of years learning French during the pandemic, so my knowledge of French is already pretty good, but I am by no means fluent. So the goal of this series is not only to practice French, but to hopefully learn something new about the language and show you how you can do the same by playing video games. With that, I think we're ready to get started. On y va!
The past is not
Little
lost.
intro sequence here.
Lives inside us. Encoded in the double.
So what I'm doing right now is waiting for the game to give me a chance to change the language,
3 decades of research.
which I haven't been able to do just yet, but I'll show you how to do that once we get there. So for right now, it is still in English, which is great.
We have unlocked the lives of our forebears.
You'll see in a moment that even though I'm able to change the language, I can't change everything, so some of the text is still in English, but that's a great way to sort of balance learning a new language with both the language itself and the one you already speak.
All from the comfort of home. Welcome to
Oh yeah,
Helix.
Helix. That became a big deal in some of these later Assassin's Creed games.
Your playground.
I remember being so confused by this menu when I first played this game, and I don't remember what year this game came out, but I was just very kind of thrown off by it, because it looks like the start menu, but not quite. You know, the developers are trying to go for a video game set inside a video game sort of situation.
Through the eyes of one of his closest friends and advisors.
So still waiting for an opportunity to change the language. Hopefully it'll come up here once this cutscene is done.
A friend of the temple.
The council's message.
But you can see the voices are in English with British accents, and I don't know if you remember, if you were around to remember when this game first came out, but that was actually quite a bit of controversy when the game was first released, because it was a game set in France, but all of the actors playing the parts were British, or at least had British accents. So they would throw in the occasional French word, kind of like a Franglish situation, but their accents and most of the dialogue was in English. So you'd have characters in Paris, France in the 18th century with Cockney accents, which was just sort of, threw people off. And they've Ubisoft has done better with the games that have come out since then, changing the accents to make them a little bit more like the characters would have had. But yeah, that was just kind of a big deal. Okay, so now we're out of the cutscene, and it's our first opportunity. So I'm going to go into the settings. I'm going to go to sound options and language, and I'm going to change both the spoken language and the subtitles to French, because we're going for sort of as close to full immersion as we can. And of course, we'll make sure they're on. So even though, and then changing that, we'll have to reset the save. But so even though we may not be able to hear or may not be able to understand what's being said or read what's being said, that's okay, because we're going to try to follow along based on context. So what is the game asking us to do? How do we know that? Things like that. And as you can see, some of the text is still in English, so the objective says follow Dumoulin, but all the subtitles are French, and the voice acting is now in French as well. So not only the main actors, but also all the background characters. So you can see here, giving us some instructions.
Ils ne doivent pas tomber entre les mains des assassins.
Grand maître, je
So he's told us to go do something, and I'm running off to go do that now. and also the database entries, which I don't look at all the database entries, but if you want, I think I opened a few of them. You can read them. They're in English as well, so you can read all of those. Okay, so here we have. So he's turned to look. So here we have some French. Je dois trouver un autre chemin. So he's looked at the bridge. It's being lifted. Can't use that. So now he's turned. He's going in another direction. So that phrase has told us that he can't go the way that he was going, so now he has to find another way. And as it happens, trouver un autre chemin means find another way. So now I'm running up the castle here. We need to find the Templar artifacts. So even though we don't know what our friend told us to do specifically, our objective is to go find the artifacts. So we can assume that whatever he said was essentially that. To go find some objects and do something with them. So we're running through this castle. Gotta find. Someone's running away from us. Kill the assassin. Okay, so that was an assassin. We're gonna go find them, kill them. I remember the running mechanics for this game were improved. They made a big deal about how much better the traversal mechanics and the climbing mechanics and everything else were for this game compared to the previous game and all the games that came before that. So things like climbing, especially climbing down, were much easier, which we'll see a little bit of that later. But the traversal itself was much smoother. Here's some combat. Come on. There it is. So parry, attack, dodge, all that good stuff. The usual. So it was bothering me slightly that I can't get the objective text and all the other text in French also. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to do that, because we really want to try to go for full immersion. So with the objectives in French as well, even though we may not know all the words, we get a general idea of what we're being asked to do, and we can sort of start to pair the words themselves with what it is we're doing in the game and try to learn that way. So it's great for learning things like verbs. It's also great for learning nouns and even some adjectives. So it's great for vocabulary building. But unfortunately, this game doesn't include, or at least I wasn't able to find it. I don't think it includes an option to do that, so we'll have to leave it as it is for now. Here we see a lot of the sort of magic that the series took on and has had since its beginning, since the first Assassin's Creed game, that they've said they're trying to move away from somewhat in the newest game that's coming out this year. So we found the book, so that was the artifact I guess we were supposed to find. And we're hiding the book. So now, even though we don't know what the other guy told us, we now get a pretty good idea of what it was. We were supposed to go find that book and hide it here, and then also hide the sword. So we stole back the sword from the assassin. So for this whole first section, we've actually been playing as a Templar. Which if you know very much about the Assassin's Creed game series or the history of it, or even if you've played the Assassin's Creed 3, you know that that game also had you playing as a Templar, spoiler alert, for the first part of the game. You just didn't know you were. So this game is a little bit different. It's a much shorter section, and you know you're playing as a Templar. So you're playing a game that the Templars want you to play. So now it's 7 years later. Little campfire here.
Pape Clément, entends-moi. Avant que l'année ne soit écoulée, tu répondras de tes crimes devant le Seigneur Tout-Puissant. Et toi, roi Philippe, même le plus abominable des châtiments ne saurait effacer les maux que tu as infligés au temple. Je vous maudis. Soyez maudits jusqu'à la 13e génération de votre sang. Soyez tous damnés.
Soyez tous damnés. You will all be damned. So again, even though we don't necessarily know everything being shouted there, you know, we can get some pretty good stuff from context. Obviously, he's very angry about something. Wouldn't you be? I mean, look at your situation. So he's screaming something very angrily. And since we know that it ends with all will be damned, we can probably assume it's some kind of curse or something.
C'est bon. J'ai un visuel. Eh, salut. Tu dois trouver ça déstabilisant.
Alright, so we're going to have another opportunity here to look at some basic grammar. So if we see here, she says, Je m'appelle Bishop, which is a very common and sort of formal way of saying my name is. So, Je m'appelle Bishop. So she says her name's Bishop, and then immediately after that says that's not her real name. So that helps. But just some very basic sort of introductory, this is who I am sort of thing. So sort of thing you would say to just anyone that you would meet. You'd probably start by saying bonjour first, as a very polite greeting, and then you might say je m'appelle and then your name. There's other ways of saying my name, but that's a pretty common formal version. There's more formal ways, as there are with most languages, but
tu comprennes un peu mieux le combat qu'on mène. Après ça, tu pourras choisir pour quel camp tu veux te battre. C'est à toi de voir.
All right. Here we go. So now we're in Versailles. 1776. So we've jumped ahead quite a bit. And Versailles, if you don't know, very famous sort of country estate in Paris, or outside of Paris, I should say, where many of the French royalty lived, and especially, most famously, Louis XIV. But we're in 1776, so it's actually Louis XVI at this point. Also, very famously, year of the American Revolution, or one of the years, one of the early years of the American Revolution, so ties in somewhat with the events of Assassin's Creed 3. We play Connor during the American Revolution, so playing that game, that story from that side. Now we're in France, looking at it from the other. Palais du Versailles. So, Palace of Versailles. Okay, so I opened up the data entry here. So you can read a little bit about that. You can pause there if you'd like to read a little bit about that. But it's just talking about the palace at Versailles where the king lived. Follow through here. Not quite sure what he said there, what he dropped. Lait means milk, so who knows? So we want to steal one of these. Looks like an apple.
Voleur, remets ça en place.
Gonna run around here. Confuse this easily confused guard. Kind of hard to believe that works. run back around here. He runs back to the door. It's actually pretty smart on his part. There's only one exit, I think. So why not block it? But wouldn't you know it, we get him with the same old trick. And we're out. She says there, vite, which means quick, and Parti, which just means this way. Oh, there it is again. Je m'appelle Arnaud. So there's Arnaud. She said her name's Elise, so that's good to know. We'll look for those names again, moving forward.
Ne t'en fais pas, ils ne penseront jamais à nous chercher. C'est de ma faute. C'est moi qui ai pris ces pommes.
Say pomme. So there's apples. So pomme is apples. That's what she asked us to steal. Or dared us to steal. Probably, more likely.
Cette affaire ne ternira pas l'image que vous vous faites de notre pays.
Si nous jugions les nations à l'aune des actes de leurs criminels, nous
Élise.
mériterions d'être traités de barbares.
Viens ici, tout de suite.
Looked at his watch there and said père. Père is father.
Viens, mon garçon.
There was a word that a lot of us probably recognize, garçon. You may have heard that word being used like in a restaurant or something like that. When talking to the wait staff.
Arnaud,
Garçon actually means boy,
regarde-moi.
so it doesn't actually mean waiter or waitress or staff or anything like that. It just means boy. It actually is probably a little bit disrespectful to call a grown, like an adult, who's working, garçon. I don't think you'd ever hear that in France. Not from a French person, anyway. All right, so we've danced here. We got Arnaud's a little bit older,
Alors il faut que tu voles, maudit chien.
Du calme, Victor, je suis juste venu pour
apparently in some
C'est
trouble.
ma montre, je l'ai gagnée à
Ce
l'honnête.
serait ton avis si on vivait dans un monde honnête, Victor, mais ce n'est pas le cas. On est en France.
Je vais te tuer.
Oh, fais attention à toi, tu vas te faire mal. J'étais justement en train de discuter avec ton frère.
Hugo, va chercher la marée chaussée.
Eh, pas si vite. Diable.
Oh, there's Vite again.
Victor.
He's quick. Now we're gonna run through this crowd, push through everyone.
Pardon?
Again, they did a lot to fix the running mechanics. So you can see there it says to pass through, so we can go through buildings now, we can go under tables,
Pardon,
go
madame.
over tables. And this is a good opportunity to talk about something that I'm doing right now and learn a really important word. So,
Nous
Korea.
trouvons bien un moyen de nous entendre.
Korea. And it's a little hard to pronounce, but it just means to run.
Pardonnez-lui, il n'est pas civilisé.
So that's what we're doing right now, and we're going to do a lot of in this game. So Korea, and you might have heard the word parkour used a lot in relation to the Assassin's Creed games and you know, most of the games that came after it, who use those mechanics. Parkour being a French word and a French skill, or sort of, well, developed in France, and it just means by running. So little connection there. So Korea, to run. And I'm going to show you another one
Vous êtes toujours là? Dois-je
here in
vous
just a
attendre?
second. Climbing again. Famous, become anonymous. Yeah, and here's the nice climb down mechanic. Kind of revolutionary at the time. Okay, so here we have another opportunity. So I'm going to hide in the hay. So hiding, or to hide, is cacher. So when we hide, we cacher. Boom. All right. Good stuff. Got away from that. Now we're gonna run back to the estate. Do.
Pour l'amour de Dieu, mais où donc étais-tu?
Ah! On tient enfin, espèce de salerin!
Jeez, these guys are really angry.
Est-ce que votre maître sait qu'il héberge un brigand? Il est entré chez
Think
moi
about that,
en plein
like chase
jour.
me through that
Il m'a volé ma
crowd,
montre.
get tackled,
Oh, vraiment?
keep chasing me.
Eh bien, je suis sûr que la maréchaussée
Chase me all the way
sera
back to my
ravie
home.
d'éclaircir cette affaire.
Good grief.
Une accusation très grave contre votre pupille, messire.
Il m'a volé!
Et qu'a-t-il pu te prendre? Attends-moi dans la bibliothèque.
Ne me regarde pas comme ça. Victor triche quand il joue au pharaon, tout le monde le sait.
Arnaud, à qui parles-tu?
À personne, monsieur.
Tu seras ravi d'apprendre que j'ai convaincu Olivier de ne pas appeler la maréchaussée. Une nouvelle fois.
Je vous remercie, monsieur.
C'était quoi? La 6e fois? La 7e? Il serait préférable de changer de passe-temps.
Mais jouer aux cartes me donne l'occasion de prendre l'air et de faire de l'exercice.
Nous en reparlerons plus tard. J'ai affaire en ville et je dois aller chercher Élise avant de partir.
Élise est ici?
Seulement pour cette nuit. Elle retourne à Paris demain matin.
Il lui faudra une escorte, c'est certain, et vous avez fort à faire.
Je n'ai pas envie que tu lui donnes de mauvaises idées. Reste ici et voici Olivier a besoin de toi.
Le contraire m'étonnerait.
Plaît-il?
Présentez mes hommages à Élise.
And there we see that name again, Elise. All right, memory 1 is done. Fantastic. All right. So, sorry for that transition there. I'm still learning a lot about recording and capturing and editing. So I had to make a little bit of a transition there because I recorded the next section separately. And I also had to re-record the next section because for whatever reason the video had a weird echo in it. I couldn't use it, so I had to go back and redo the second memory. So we're gonna pop in to the next section of the game here, but learned a lot of really great stuff in that first one. Learned a little bit about using game context to find our way through the game, to follow objectives, learned a couple of great verbs that are gonna be really useful. And now we're back. Standing in the village here. Normally the next chapter would have started right in the house, but again, had to start it over. So just taking a moment here. I'm gonna go into the menu, reload the next memory. And there we go, memory 2. Let's get it.
Alors, il t'a enfin jeté à la rue?
Oh, ça te plairait, n'est-ce pas?
Ça me briserait le cœur.
Olivier, si je n'étais pas là, qui ferait ton travail à ta place?
Les chevaux doivent être étrillés. Occupe-t'en.
Certainement, monsieur.
All right, so he's just told us to do something. So we go outside, let's see. So, all right, so we're brushing the horse. So odds are what he asked us to do was to go brush the horse. Now, if I read that conversation correctly, he said horses. He said les chevaux. Or chevaux. I forget which. Because one is horses and one is hair. And I can't remember which is which. But regardless. But I just saw one horse, so I'm not sure.
Pour Messire de la Serre, une missive cruciale.
Oh, garde ton
Regardless.
sang-froid, Perrault. Monsieur de la Serre ne risque pas de recevoir
You
cette
can kind of
lettre
put
sous couleur
those two pieces
d'épuisement.
together to get an
Confie-la-moi,
idea
je vais le
of
rattraper.
what he
doit
asked
la
us to do
lire
there.
C'est très...
Très
Now this
important.
person's run up out of
Oui,
nowhere.
j'avais bien compris. Il l'aura, n'aie crainte.
Hands us this letter, and now we're off. Famous
Monsieur de la Serre,
chase
arrêtez-vous!
slash trail missions, Assassin's Creed lore,
Faites place!
everyone's favorites. So we're on the rooftops. And I don't remember if this was the first game to use it, but we had I just used the like rope or cable to launch up to the roof. So very convenient. We're chasing down this carriage. And hop off the roof here. I meant to do that a little more gracefully.
Bonjour, monsieur, et bienvenue.
And boom.
Monsieur de la Serre.
Gotcha. See, just the one horse.
Mes excuses. Je me suis trompé de voiture.
Alright, so obviously not the guy we're looking for.
Un peu de hauteur.
They want us to go to the church over there. So a couple of like things to point out that would be useful. So obviously you saw the camera turn, pointing us towards the church, and of course the objective says go to the church spire, which is very helpful. But in that last thing he said, he used a couple of important phrases. So il faut, which means it's necessary, and then hauteur, which means higher. So he's saying, I need to get higher. And he said that as he looked, slipped off the roof there. He said that as he looked at the church. So even though we may not know exactly what he said, the game is kind of pointing us in the right direction. And again, of course, it helps that the objectives can tell us that. But even if you don't read the objectives, or you turn them off, or maybe you're playing the game to learn English and you're not quite sure what it means to go to the church spire, you can still get a lot from the context clues. So the game does a great job of sort of helping point you in the right direction. Classic synchronization scene. So you can see we're out in the middle of nowhere. So we're not quite... So we started the game, or we started this section of the game in Versailles, but looking around that view doesn't look to be very palacey-ish, so we're probably not quite in Versailles anymore. We're in some sort of village, some sort of country, estate. Man, they did a really great job with this descend mechanic. It's so smooth. You just hold down right trigger and circle, and you get to the ground no problem. Unless, of course, you're me, and you tried to get off that roof earlier, and there was nothing to descend on, and you just sort of jumped off the roof. Alright, so here we have Eagle Vision, another classic of the Assassin's Creed series. It shows you all the important bits that you need to be aware of. So I'm just going to stand in this crowd of people. So I need to get into the lower gallery. Trying to blend in, not get noticed. And squeeze around, chill with these folks for a few seconds. Make sure no one's following me. Looks like we're in the clear. Scoot around the corner, down the side. Make sure no one's looking for me. Well, sure, how about it? Why not? I'll take that. 100 florins. And we're in. They did a great job with these interiors too. I don't know much of anything about 18th century French decoration, but looks pretty great. Lots to look at. And actually being able to go inside the buildings. I remember that being kind of a big deal too. I think it was a new feature for the Assassin's Creed series, because and I don't remember if Black Flag had any of this, but I know in Assassin's Creed 3 you could kind of pass through buildings, just like we did earlier in the video, but you couldn't actually go inside. You couldn't stand inside them like we are right now. At least I don't think you could. It's been a long time since I played that game, but I'm pretty sure you could only pass through. Oh, look at all that texture pop in. And the only insides you saw were like during cutscenes and stuff. So this is kind of a big deal. There's like, a lot of people in here. They got a lot going on.
Je n'ai pas balancé à rétablir un usage
Encore ces deux-là.
dont le royaume
Ils ont dû me suivre depuis la
peut
demeure.
tirer une nouvelle force et qui peut ouvrir à la nation.
I can't be certain. I can't be sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was a PS4 launch title. So it was like one of the first opportunities to sort of use the power of the PS4 and occupy it with, you know, crowds and noise and buildings and things like that. So we'll see this a lot more once we actually get to Paris at some point.
Je vois. Et qui viendra prendre sa place? Un autre roi? Un conseil de sages?
C'est là toute la question, n'est-ce pas?
Une trêve alors?
Diable, mais que se passe-t-il?
You gotta be kidding me.
Mon brave, je suis certain que
Honestly, these guys really do not give up. I mean,
Attrape-le, Hugo!
faut croire que non.
chased me back to my home,
Attrape-le, Hugo!
and now they've chased me all the way. They followed me to this sort of council room or, you know, estate, parliamentary kind of place. And they've snuck in and they've pinned me up in this room. Jeez, it was a watch, fellas. Little dodge roll, and attack. Reminds me, this was also one of the versions of Assassin's Creed that included the additional objectives, which I think they've had since at least Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Could be wrong, but I think that's when they started doing that. But so you can fulfill like bonus objectives, and I don't remember if you're penalized here for not completing them. I know in future games like you don't get the full award if you miss a bonus objective, which is a little annoying. But they did include them here, so I was trying my best to get those. Now we're running again. Remember that verb. Starts with a C. Running. Oh! Almost. Running, climbing. And down we go.
Hors de question de
Trying to get out of this area, and it looks like we've done it.
retrouverai à la maison.
Boom. Memory 2 done. Got the bonus objectives. And more tutorials on free running. All right. Sequence 2 complete. Fantastic. All right, and you see there it says districts, Récollet. So the area, you know, so they've divided everything up into districts. They did this with Assassin's Creed Syndicate as well, divided up London into its various districts. But there you have it. That was the first couple memory sequences of Assassin's Creed Unity in French. So learned a lot. We learned a little bit of some basic introductions and a couple of basic verbs. And got to hear some French being spoken, which is fantastic. And I kind of want to go over to this store here. At least I think it's a store. It's an look at the wall here. It's an PCA. So we can see some stuff written on there. Looks like maybe an item list, and it looks like they have poisson sale, so like fish, and then I think I saw butter and eggs there as well. All right, so thank you everyone for joining me on this first video. First of what I hope will be many videos, not only in this series, but as I tackle more series on this channel, we'll be looking at different games, different languages I know a little bit about, languages I know nothing about, and trying to see what all we can accomplish. So again, thanks for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.